human-centric. And now, if we want to live on like we do today, we will have to think, well, if we change the environment, if we put more CO2, carbon dioxide, whatever, into the air, we are running into trouble. It's a calculation, let's say. It is a pure calculation. In my opinion, I think that we have just to cut back somehow. We have to say, in my opinion, nobody needs three cars and drive around hundreds and thousands of kilometers or fly here and there and there. It's not necessary at the moment. You will not die if you don't do that. So, well, we have a household. We need to say, well, we just can afford this amount of CO2 in our atmosphere, so let's reduce it. And I think we can easily do that. It is not that hard. It's a calculation that we have to do. I don't have to fly 10,000 kilometers into a vacation. It is not necessary. One day, if we have something that is not polluting the environment or emitting CO2 or whatever, and we have an airplane that can fly with whatever, well, awesome. We can use it again. Today, well, my opinion, we have so much luxury around us. We don't need that.
No, and Chris, you make an excellent point there in that, I think what's lacking here is strategic thinking. We, as you said, we tend to just respond to things and not look ahead and plan for the worst. And, I think it's one of the problems is that there's a lot of people out there that buy into this fact that, yes, I agree with you that, since the earth was created, it's gone through many evolutions and, those have involved climate change. So there's a natural progression in
For sure.
place here. But, we also need to look ahead and say, okay, we acknowledge the fact that, this might be a natural thing that's exasperated by CO2 and other chemicals that are being, fed into the atmosphere. But, let's all on a global level come up with a plan and move forward. And there just seems to be this reluctance to either admit that there is a climate change issue or that we need to do anything about it. It's, a little bit disturbing that people can't see.
Well, I think they don't want to see it because they are afraid of economic cutbacks, for example. Like someone who's got a lot of shares of whatever kind of oil producing industry or what the heck knows that if there is a cutback, a heavy cutback on those techniques and using those resources like natural gas, for example, or oil or anything that it can emit CO2 when you burn it. Well, those people don't want to lose the money that they could make out of that. So, but the point here is, well, get over it first. Yeah, I mean,
yes,
it's
I
like that.
agree. Totally agree.
We have to think a little bit longer, also over our own death, and say, well, in maybe in 30 years I'm not alive anymore. I don't know. Maybe I make it, maybe not. I will be something like 82 or 83 in that case. Okay, might happen, might not happen. Maybe I'm getting 103. You never know. But you have to think about, well, do I need again to fly around like crazy and drive three cars and emit whatever? No, I don't. I really don't have to. And do I need $10 billion on my bank account? Because yeah, I want to be filthy rich, and I will do that by selling oil or burn it or whatever. No, that's called basically responsibility somehow. Okay, it's hard to put that to people, right? So we need to decide together, and that's called politics. In the end, we need to stick together and say, well, look, this is happening. And we know that rising sea levels is especially bad for people living on the whatever kind of seashells, or I don't know where in the world, Micronesia, or I don't know, islands in the deep blue sea somewhere. They are really, really troubled. They are losing their homes. And well, you might say like, okay, that could happen anyways. And the sea level is sometimes rising. And yeah, but we don't have to force it. Really, we don't need that. And again, there's so much stuff that is just pure luxury that we don't really need. We should take a look at our consumption, in my opinion. Our ancestors, 200 years ago, they maybe had two pairs of shoes and two pairs of trousers. Today, I guess that every 14, 15-year-old girl or boy owned in his lifetime till that time, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pairs of shoes and trousers and whatever. Is that necessary? Basically, must that be? And then you're throwing the stuff away. Maybe you recycle it, takes again energy, takes a lot of resources, and whatever happening to that stuff, if they using colors to color the jeans and what the heck. Um, the big questions: are you more happy when you own 20 pair of jeans than 10? Uh, where's the point?
No, there isn't a point, and that's something that I've learned over my life is that it all becomes junk. It's just clutter, and it's as you say. I mean, you only wear one pair of jeans, and so
Right.
the other
Yeah.
20 have to be stored somewhere.
For example.
Someone said to me the other day that they met me online, and one of their comments that I thought was interesting was, oh, you must have so many nice things. And, yeah, there was a time when I did collect art, and but it became I mean, I also collected books, and I think probably the biggest example here is the books that I ended up with about 3,500 or so books.
Wow.
And every time I moved, it was just
Oh
a
goodness.
major hassle. I mean, packing these books, and the movers used to curse me because, books are not light. And,
Not really. Yeah.
and so finally, I just made a decision that I don't want anything anymore. I mean, obviously my computers and things like that, but, people offered to send me little gifts or tokens and whatever, and I just tell them nope, sorry, send it to someone else because they will appreciate it. It's just something, if I get it, it's going to sit here, and it's
Right.
just a total waste. It's so we don't need things, but and this maybe is a little bit deviating from the topic here, but I think advertising is in many cases to blame, where we're sitting there and we see an advert on television or somewhere else, and all of a sudden it triggers something in our brain that, oh, we've got to go out and buy this car, or my
Sure.
car isn't that good, and so I need a brand new car.
Right.
And cars are problematic because in Europe, it, you're lucky in that you have a good transportation infrastructure. Here in the U.S., there it's very, very lacking. I mean, New York City, for example, is great. I loved living in New York City. In fact, we bought a car and kept it for about 3 weeks because it just became such a hassle. We had to park it on the opposite side of the street every day, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
often forgot, and so we got parking tickets. But man, just being able to jump into a subway and go somewhere without worrying about a car and the insurance and polluting the planet. But here in
Correct.
Pennsylvania, to go anywhere, I, for example, I live 8 miles out of town, right, out of central Pittsburgh. If I want to go downtown, to take a bus is going to take me an hour and a half.
Yeah,
It's just we haven't set up this country to have
yeah,
people not have cars, which is unfortunate.
exactly. I think that is one of the most, yeah, horrible things on Earth, that we have so incredible, fantastic possibilities. If that's, for example, public transportation, I'm quite happy that in my area here in Berlin, we have a quite good public transportation system all over Germany, basically, even if they are going on strike. Anyways, so yeah, and again, they decided to go on strike, but whatever. So yeah, it is so important if we have those possibilities. And I'm also thinking about the individual traffic. I mean, I can understand that people have cars, they have to go somewhere. Yes, I can do understand that. But I think it would be much more effective if you would have something like organized little cars that you just order when you want to go somewhere. So instead of everyone has one car standing around and driving and creating traffic jams or whatever, have an organized thing like little cars that can stick together like little trains or whatever, and they will bring you where you have to go. No, everything organized, automatic driving, and you will have less problems with traffic jams. You will have less whatever energy you will use for that. You will have less um, dead people in traffic because of too fast going cars and what the heck. Um, yeah, sure. It's not that nice when people cannot drive themselves with their car and decide, no, I want to go 10 miles faster or 20 miles slower or whatever. Yeah, but on the other hand, you get from A to B, and it will help anyone. And think about that. Something you don't have to take care of. You don't have to buy a car. You don't have to repair it. You don't have to whatever, right? At a
Right,
fingertip on
right.
your smartphone, you will have a transportation tool, whatever. I would love to have that. And I don't have a car. I never owned a car in my life. I thought several times about that. Yeah, really, because I was always, when I was finished with school and I started to study here, and I was more or less living on the on the campus
Right, right.
on the studio campus where we studied. So I never went anywhere. I was here 7 days a week, every day, because I wanted to do that stuff. And then I moved into an apartment here in this area. So I never moved somewhere. When I went to other countries to do trainings and projects, well, I never used my car to go to Indonesia or to go to Canada or Australia. I was flying there. No other way to do that in that way. But I never needed a car for myself here personally. I'm doing everything by feet, not even having a bike, but I can rent one. That's not a big deal. And we have bus and we have trains and we have trams and whatever. I can get anywhere. It's not a big deal. And yeah, if you're used to that, you don't have the problem that you will miss it, right?
No, I'd love to. I'd move to back to New York City in a flash if it wasn't so expensive. But
Yeah,
yeah,
get anywhere.
but I don't know what the solution is for places like Pennsylvania here, where when
Mm.
you leave town it becomes rural, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, how to solve that problem. Because I mean, here one of my greatest fears is something happens to my car and I have to replace it. Or well, I mean, last year I had
For
to put
example,
like $2,500 into it, to keep it
seriously,
going. And
yeah.
luckily it's a tax deduction, but one also has to be able to make the money to deduct the tax from it. So it's a vicious sword.
Uh, sure. I mean, that's exactly the point where you think like, well, you're putting so much money and stuff in here. In Germany, it's even you have to go every 2 years to a special um, control so that it's not emitting too
Yep,
much,
right,
whatever
right,
kind of
right.
stuff. Do you have the same in US?
Yeah, every year. In fact, I mean, that's why I had to
Oh,
spend the money last year was
ah,
that, I took my car in for the, annual inspection, the smog inspection, and, they
smoke.
came
Okay.
back and said, it needs this, it needs that, and whatever. And, we can't do the inspection unless you, have
Yeah,
it all
the
fixed.
repair.
And it's like, man,
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's the same
and
here.
my,
But
no, go ahead.
no, sorry. I think still here it's just every 2 years the smoke inspection, and then every 4 years or 3 years you have a general inspection and stuff like that. Okay, well, yeah, it's for safety. It's important, no doubt about that. But again, you can save all that. You don't need to do that because, well, yeah, try to get around without it. I can understand in your case it's not possible. If you don't have public transportation and everything is too far away, well, what can you do?
Right, and my, when I work, I have to drive to wherever I'm going, and sometimes it's hundreds of miles away, and I have to be there because I have to meet a deadline, and so I'm speeding along in a rush to get there. But that also
Yeah.
brings up another interesting angle to all of this is that, I think as Mylan, one of the members of the virtual film company, mentioned yesterday, and I think other people have noted this, that, during the pandemic, the air cleaned up and there were a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
positives. But,
Oh, yeah.
we seem to have gone back to this narrow-minded philosophy that remote working doesn't work. And, I would argue that, maybe the reason it doesn't work is that there are poor managers in place, but that's another story. But I mean, just imagine all of the CO2 that's created in the mornings when cars are in, gridlock traffic jams and they're just sitting there, thousands of cars just idling and idling. And, I mean, it just seems to me that these things are staring us in the face, and yet we're so complacent about them.
Yeah. Moment probably one of the biggest or the biggest challenge that the human race altogether has to maintain the status. Again, we could be brutal and say, well, we're going on, we are polluting more, we are emitting more CO2. We will see what happens. Some people say, no, it's not getting that worse. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, and from our 8 billion people, maybe 2 or 3, 4 billion will die. And the others will survive and say, well, yeah, we are in an area where it's not that hard. Sea levels are rising, okay, but I'm not exactly at the coast. Maybe then they will be at the coast. However, you never know. And humanity will survive, in my opinion. They will be able to, even if it's getting more and more hot and there will be less drinking water. What the heck? Some people will survive. So yeah, I guess that we still think, well, we have so many people and we want to care about all of them, that they have a good life, and right, so we need to do something. We need to be aware, but I don't think it makes sense, like some people in Germany, for example, here doing, they're demonstrating every day, so they're sticking themselves to the street, to the high,
Okay.
to prevent others driving by car. And well, that does not help, in my opinion. It's a demonstration, like we have to do something. Yeah, we have to do something. But sticking yourself to the street does not prevent someone to drive. In the end, the police is coming, take them by besides, takes an hour maybe, and then everyone is driving again. And this is not the point. Everyone is mad at those people because people need to go to work and whatever. No, but then sometimes you find those people on blogs or whatever on the internet where they talk about, oh, I'm going to fly out with my friend to Bali to vacation.
Right.
Like, what the heck is going on in your brain? Like, why? Why? I mean, yeah, I was flying a lot myself, but sure, I mean, it was for work. It was not like for fun. I'm going there to chill out on the beach. In the last 25 years, I never went to a vacation somewhere out of whatever, Germany or more far around. Um, okay, I was lucky. I was in fancy places because I was sent there by the companies, and I always could uh, stay 2 days longer or whatever. Not a big deal. So I had vacations almost for free. But it's not for me the point to say, well, now I need to see Africa. I need to go there and see lions and elephants in a wilderness. For example, it must be, otherwise I'm not happy. Yeah, I would like to see that. Yeah, maybe one day there's a ship transportation that is not too dirty, for example, whatever that makes it possible, or there will be airplanes that are not polluting that much. But at the moment, I would say it is not necessary. It must not be. Can think about going there with an electric car, long travel. Probably, I'm not going to do that. It's not that important for me. So yeah, and in this case, I just can say, well, we have so fantastic technologies today. If I want to see lions in wilderness, there can be a great 360-degree video that I can see in virtual reality. It feels quite similar in a way, and gives me the impression, at least. So I don't need to go there myself, not necessarily.
No, good point. And I think that, is one of the big advantages of virtual reality is that one can visit these places and safely. I mean, that's the other, I mean, I personally, if I never get onto another airplane in my life, will be quite happy. I have no ambition. I mean, I used to be on planes like every few days. I mean, going all over the world. I mean, my first plane trip was when I was 5. My father was transferred to Holland, and I had scarlet fever, and I had to stay behind in quarantine, and so ended up flying alone to Holland. But later on, it was for business, and as you have done, I mean, for example, I went to Rio a few times and stayed over for a few days and took a mini vacation, but I didn't fly to Rio for vacation. It was for business. And I mean, just being cramped in a plane and rushing, connector to connector, and flights being cancelled. I'm just happy actually where I'm at. It's
Yeah, I mean, for me too, it's not really necessary. I really liked it to go to other places and see Brazil as well, Rio, for example, and Sao Paulo, or to see Australia, Sydney, or Indonesia, China, and Europe. Anyways, it was great, an opportunity, and yeah, sure. So I can imagine if someone is just living in his office every day, working as whatever, doing in a hospital and doing his service. That also these people like to go somewhere else and see a different country or whatever, right? I can definitely understand that, right?
right.
So we have to find solutions for that as well to make a contingent, however. And in my opinion, today, when I'm working on projects, I'm totally happy staying at home office or whatever, and talk to people in the metaverse, right? That's good enough. I can explain them stuff in an environment. Why shouldn't that work?
No, and it should work. Right now, as you know, there's a big I guess, backlash against the metaverse where people saying it doesn't work. But, I think we've proved over the last 2 years or, more that, operating a company and having meetings in the metaverse does work. We have made a success of it. And I think, it really goes back to, in my opinion, knowing how to use the technology appropriately, having managers in place that, make sure that things happen. And, it really should be no different to a person working in an office because this is a virtual office. It's, I could argue, if we go back to, um, that whatever that's I could argue that if we go back to the early days of the internet that things were very inefficient, but being in a virtual space with other people, I think changes all of that because all of a sudden you have this sense of presence where that person, I mean, on Zoom, the number of times that I have just, switched off my camera and, excuse me, wandered around the house, excuse me, and, without people knowing that I'm not even there anymore. I'm just listening to the conversation. But in VR, you have to be there.
Right.
So we have one of our hosts here who is making a lot of noise and has been taking part in the pollution of the planet by flying all over the place. So would you like to join us, Mystery? Have a seat here at our brand new table to celebrate our first broadcast from Spatial. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to sit down here. You have to kind of initially when I was in here, I was saying to Chris, this looks like I'm height-wise, and he said, yeah, you're standing on the chair, so.
Yeah, no, at the moment you're sitting, that's nice. Well,
Yeah, and I
meanwhile,
mean, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say, meanwhile, when we were talking, I was firing up my local Vicuña AI chatbot, and I connected it in the last week with Stable Diffusion web UI.
Ah,
So there's an API, and now it can write prompts. And I was asking it, can you have to see? Did I ask, please create a picture that shows the world in 50 years with climate change happening? And
okay.
I don't know. You can see the result over there on the shared screen. Um, yeah, it's a special
Interesting.
vision. Let's say.
Interesting.
Um, I
Well, I mean,
expected
to
something else,
me,
but anyway.
I mean, AI, I think is definitely interesting because it has more information than a human being does to sift through and analyze and come to certain conclusions. And so, I hate to say this, but if it came to a AI or a human predicting something, I would actually go in favor of the AI. I'm sorry to say, but um,
Yeah,
that
yeah. I
brings
mean,
up another. No, go ahead.
yeah. It's more like, yeah, the big question: what can help us? Can AI help us on getting around with the climate change? I guess it can, because if we have AI companions that reminds us, for example, that has this knowledge and say, hey, um, on your smartphone, whatever, you're going to, I don't know, go shopping, then you buy this or that, and the AI
Mm-hmm.
would know what you already have. It might tell you, hey, do you really need this pair of shoes because you already have sneakers and they're quite well. You just bought them last week, yeah. And
Uh-huh.
thinking about
Uh-huh.
it, those things you want to buy here now, they are really really it could in the background research for you, right? And be something like your green mind, let's say, your green mindset. That would be interesting to have something like an AI companion that does it.
No, very much so. And in fact, this morning I saw an ad for an app that's unfortunately only available on iOS that was pretty much making those claims that, it said that it was running on GPT-4 and, would be your companion, basically, as you say, remind you of stuff, let you know its opinion on things. And it continues to make me want to switch from Android to iOS because it seems like a lot of these cool features are only available on iOS. So it seems like we have a disruptive person here dancing. Are you putting on a show for us?
Hello, we are recording, and at the moment our broadcasting is not live here. It would be nice if you would take place in the discussion to sit down on the blue couch, for example.
Right. Yeah, I'm reluctant to try the. In fact, maybe next time we'll try some of that seating button, which pushes someone into a seat. But anyway, back to this discussion. I mean, one of the, I think, correlations between, or maybe the problematic areas between AI and climate change, and I know that you're running on a local machine, but you are connected to the back end, which is running on, if I'm not mistaken, NVIDIA clusters, which are using massive amounts of energy. And so, the question becomes then, how
No, 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 no.
no?
Wait a second. No, no, look, that system here really just runs on my PC. There's nothing behind that anymore, right? So the training of that stuff was probably done on massive, right? So the training of the AI itself was for sure a lot of energy, hassle, or there was a lot of energy used for that. 100% because Vicuña, this model that I'm using here, is based on Llama, and Llama was trained by Meta, and Meta for sure used billions and billions of instructions and trained the AI model, and that has consumed a lot of energy. But what we see here and what it's doing here is really just local on my PC. There's no, there would be no
Okay.
internet
Great,
connection
great.
be used for, and the same for the stable diffusion. That's you know just also completely running locally here on my PC.
Yeah, no, that I think is the definite solution. I'm sorry, I thought you mentioned that you were doing API calls out to GPT-4.
No, no,
But
API
yeah,
calls, correct. API calls, yes, but in this case, between a web UI that runs stable diffusion on my local PC, between a web UI that runs Vicuña AI, large language model, also on my PC. So they're just locally connected via API.
okay, okay. Yeah, because I was reading an article the other day about, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but they were saying that every query that's generated through GTP4, I think was like 30 cents or 35 cents in terms of, cost, and, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in operating costs for the servers. And I have no idea what the electricity bill is. I mean, it must be phenomenal. But
Oh,
there's been, I remember when I was involved with data centers with Qualcomm, where we looked at low cost cooling solutions, and one of those was actually, and it never happened, but building a data center in Iceland where
yeah,
one could basically rely on the weather to act as a cooling mechanism rather than pay for electricity and of course affect the climate.
absolutely. Yes, I know that they're doing that. That other companies are also going that route for Iceland or whatever, because it's just colder over there. And sure, I mean it makes sense. And on top of that, Iceland, for example, is running on energy. Even if you use a lot of energy in Iceland, 99% or whatever, or 95%, I don't know exactly, in Iceland is generated by using the volcanic power, let's say, the heating
Mm. Hmm.
that they have, right, in under the earth. So it's amazing how they generate their energy. Like also Finland or Sweden or whatever, they have so many lakes and whatever. They have so many possibilities to pump water up and down and generate with energy with turbines and stuff. It's incredible what possibilities you have basically if you own the well the water if you have it and stuff. You know.
No, that interesting. Because I mean, to me, electricity isn't going to go away. I mean, I hope to see gas, natural gas, and petroleum and petroleum-related products go away. But I think that and I know nuclear reactors were an attempt to do this, but there is an issue with nuclear waste. But if we could, and the Chinese apparently are getting close to this, developing, fusion technology that can develop electricity with little to no waste, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, I mean, I mean, the big thing to me is that we need to move forward. I mean, I was looking at, and this goes to your earlier comment, my gas bill the other day, my natural gas bill, and I used, I think, $30 worth of gas, but they charged me, $100 extra for, transportation fees to get the gas to me. And,
Oh yeah.
I mean, that to me is ridiculous. I mean, it's, it costs more to deliver the gas than the actual gas. And then, there's leakages in the pipe. There's, I mean, here in Pennsylvania, probably once a year, something blows up because of a gas leak. And, so we definitely need better solutions.
100%. Yeah. What about Eric Mystery? Do you have anything to say to that? Yeah.
Okay, he's going to do a table dance for us. Well, we've come to the end of our first show here on Spatial. And as I say, when we started, this is the virtual film company. We are refugees from Alt Space VR, and today has been an experiment in doing a live show and possibly broadcasting it. That remains to be seen. We will check and see what things look like later. But, we thank everyone for attending, people that dropped in here. And we're here every Wednesday at noon Eastern time talking about a whole bunch of things from climate change to AI to law to dating in the metaverse. So, join us and please check out our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Thank you.
Well said.
Good Good. Well, is that a cut? Are we still on the air?
On YouTube, it looks like it.
Yeah, it says live at the top. So where's our technician here? We we have to have an end screen showing here. Ah, okay. He's stopped the transmission, I think. So one of the things that I was extremely impressed with was the audio, Chris.